Hello, and welcome to the OKPreps Extra Show. I'm Patrick Prince, joined by Barry Lewis. This will be our once a week high school show where this time of year we'll talk mostly football, but you never know, we might get into some other sports as well. Well, Barry, preseason is over and it just feels like all is right with the world, doesn't it? We're in game week, man. How cool is that?
It is very cool. It's great to get the preseason past us. At the Tulsa World, we start covering well, we really never stopped covering high school football, but we really started seriously gearing up for the season back when spring practice was held back in May. And now here we are, 13 or 15 weeks later. They're ready to kick it off and we're ready to cover it.
Well, and we got a blockbuster, Barry, in number one Bixby at number four Owasso, 7:30 on Friday. Uh, big implications in that game. What do you make of that one?
It's always very exciting when you get two programs that have combined to have won 11 state titles in the past 10 years. What a marquee matchup. And of course, Bixby's won most of those titles, but still two very tradition rich programs. And it should be a great matchup on Friday night. What a way to kick off the season. But that's not the only great game that is on the schedule this week.
So what I was reading your top five games that's in online now. It's in today's paper today that we're filming this on Tuesday. So I said today, Tuesday Tulsa World. Check out Barry Lewis's top five games, which he will have every week in football season. You mentioned that Owasso is going to have a new starting quarterback, a sophomore. That kind of intrigues me. What can you tell me about him?
Yes, Drew Frankenfield, sophomore, has coached Antonio Graham, and this will be his first game as head coach. That's one of the interesting storylines on Friday night. But he describes Drew as very athletic, it's a good arm. He really works hard in the weight room, and he's a student of the game. So that's everything that you'd want from your quarterback, at least for starters. So he will have the benefit. I mean, this is asking a lot of a young man, sophomore, making your first start in the Battle of the Burbs. But I mean, you look back to last year, and if things don't go well for him, all is not lost. So don't judge him on just one game. Because remember last year, Knox Dyson had a rough go of it in his first start for Owasso in the Battle of the Burbs at Chapman Stadium. And then after that, he was lights out, and now he's at LSU. So you can't just, one game isn't everything. So it'll be natural if he's a little nervous, but he's going to be helped out by a really strong running game and a really good, maybe the state's best, arguably, offensive line. So those are things in his favor. But it'll be very interesting to see how he responds to the pressure.
This game comes down to what, Barry?
It comes down to, well, last year, Owasso played Bixby even for 2.5 quarters when they last met in the semifinals. And so from Owasso, if you ask them, they'll say it's all about finishing. I think that is a bit encouraging for Owasso that they were able to play even with Bixby for 2.5 quarters, because most teams can't say that. Most of the times Bixby's up by 40 points at that midway through the third quarter and it's over. And that was certainly pretty much the case with Owasso in the Battle of the Burbs last year. So now from Owasso, you can't commit any mistakes virtually. You've got to play clean football, very few penalties, no turnovers, and you can't afford to beat yourself, because if you make a mistake, Bixby will capitalize. From a Bixby standpoint, it'll be interesting to see how they fare with so many new starters. They only returned 5 starters from last year out of the 22 positions. So they've got some question marks too, but one of the questions is not at quarterback, because Carson Kirby, he's the real deal. He was big time last year all season long. Although it was interesting, I'd forgotten about this until doing some research for the top games column in today's paper, that he didn't really throw for very many yards against Owasso last year. Owasso did a pretty good job holding their passing game in check. That being said, Bixby got plenty of yards and plenty of points. So they didn't really have to pass a lot, but the passing game really didn't click very well against Owasso last year. But Carson Kirby, he doesn't run a lot, but he can beat you with his legs. He had a big 66-yard touchdown run in the semifinal game that really was the springboard for Bixby breaking the game open.
We've written about this in the past, Barry, but remind our viewers why that game is not at TU.
It's not at TU due to scheduling. They really wanted the game to be like it had been the last 2 years on a Thursday night and basically have the high school spotlight just on this game and have the whole community or the whole city of Tulsa, the whole area, come to the H.A. Chapman Stadium, have a huge crowd like it happened the last 2 years. But TU's got a home game on Thursday night. TU is opening the season on Thursday night. So that was not possible. So once the game was moved to Friday, it just didn't make sense to play it at TU anymore.
Okay. Okay. Fair enough. So let's talk about your 6A rankings, which came out Sunday. They were in the Sunday Tulsa World, as was all of your awesome high school preview copy, along with Bill Haston. So you got Bixby 1, Jinx 2, Owasso 3. Am I getting this right? And
Union 3.
Union 3, Owasso 4. Give us some context. Is it a battle for any one of those four? Could you see any one of those four winning? Is Bixby the clear favorite? Give us some detail here.
I'm not counting Owasso out by any means, but I really think it's a toss-up between the top three. Bixby I'm going with Bixby until proven otherwise. They're the champions when you won 9 championships in 10 years. I'm going to go with Bixby as the pick, but Jenks and Union both had great off seasons in the so-called transfer portal. Even though Jenks lost Hudson Ball, and that's a huge loss, a Defensive Player of the Year finalist from last season as he moved to Shiloh Christian. They really strengthened their wide receiving core. They really strengthened the offensive line. It's been a good offseason for Jenks, and it's been a good offseason for Union too. They've made some nice pickups. So I can see any one of those three winning it. It's a toss-up.
Well, speaking of Union, Barry, we probably should talk about Shaker Rysick a little bit. He was number 1 in your player rankings that published Sunday in the Tulsa World. Highly talented quarterback, as of now committed to Boston College. What kind of year are you expecting out of Shaker?
A blockbuster year, but he's had 3 really good years already. So I think this will be his best year. And, he's going to be hungrier than ever after the last 2 seasons at Union ended with heartbreaking semifinal losses. So he started his career with the state championship at Jenks, and he wants to end it at Union. And of course, it's been 8 years since Union's won its last state title, and they're not used to waiting so long between state titles. So the whole Union team is really intense and motivated to end that drought. Shaker was the number 1 selection on our all-world rankings, the top 10 list. It was a really tough decision. Shaker over Bert Ficklin of Muskogee, who was the all-world offensive player of the year in 2023. It's pretty much a toss-up. I could see them going back and forth in the all-world rankings all season long. So tune in every week or pick up a world every week to see who's number 1. So Shaker, incredibly accurate quarterback. He's done just about everything that you could ask of a quarterback, except the last 2 years, Union just came up short in the semifinals.
Well, why don't you remind us our exciting project that we're doing with Booker T. Washington's Joseph Graves?
Yes, Bill Haston's series that he does every year following a player throughout the season with a series of features on that player. This year, it'll be on Booker T. Washington's sophomore defensive lineman, Joseph Graves, who's already received an offer from OU, received one back in June after a camp there. So that says a lot that as a sophomore, he's already got an offer from OU. And it says a lot for Booker T's defense that they shut out 4 all-city opponents last week without him, as he was sitting out for precautionary reasons with an ankle injury. But Anyway, that series in the past, last year, Bill featured Hudson Ball, and he's also done Cole Adams, and he's also done Braylon Presley. So we're looking forward to seeing what Bill has for us with Joseph Graves this season. I think it's going to be a fascinating look.
Yeah, it will. And I know Bill's real excited to write about Joseph this season. So that'll be a lot of fun on an up and coming TPS talent. Okay, Barry, let's say I'm not affiliated with any school, but I want to go see a game this Friday. Where am I going? Could be a good game or maybe just a good player to go watch. What do you think?
Could be going where I'm going.
Yeah,
I'm not
that's too obvious. Give
I'm
me
not going to the Battle of the Burbs. I will be Edmond Santa Fe at Jenks. So Edmond Santa Fe has been a part of some of the most fascinating games here in the Tulsa area in the last few years. It seems like it's very exciting whenever Edmond Santa Fe comes over here, and they've had some success at Jenks. So I'm going to be Edmond Santa Fe at Jenks. Bill Haston will be at the Battle of the Burbs. Other great games, of course, the Battle of the Halls, the traditional rivalry, Holland Hall at Cascia Hall. That's always a great game. And they've had a history of a lot of thrillers in that series. And then Lincoln in a battle of two of 3A's top teams, Lincoln Christian and Victory Christian. It's amazing that these teams haven't met in a decade. So that should be really good. And Booker T. Washington visiting Muskogee. I think this will be a great measuring stick to see how much Booker T has progressed. And I think they have progressed a lot under new head coach Dan Bitson.
Yeah, I'd kind of that game kind of got lost in the shuffle for me, Barry, looking at the schedule. But you're right, that should be a really good measuring stick. Not only, I mean, yeah, for all the reasons that you said. I mean, Booker T, by what you've seen so far, you're impressed with, yes?
Yes, I was very impressed last week. Just again, with so many teams, I don't know about their depth situation, but if they can keep everyone healthy, and of course, if Joseph Graves is healthy the whole year long, I think they've got a chance for a quick turnaround. As I pointed out today, Booker T was 2-8 last year, obviously the worst season in 25 years. The last time they went 2-8, they had a great year after that. And Muskogee was 2-8 back in 2021. And then the next year they went to the semifinals. And then, of course, they're now the defending state champions. So turnarounds can happen quickly. I'm not saying that's going to happen at Booker T. Washington, but I think there is potential for a really good season there.
So we mentioned this earlier, Barry, but your top 10, your all-world top 10 players. We talked about Shaker being number one, Jamarian Ficklin at Muskogee number two. Of that really awesome, talented top 10 list, which one of those players intrigues you the most for whatever reason?
The one who intrigues me the most is Wagner's Cale Charbonneau, the quarterback linebacker, just because there have been so many comparisons between Cale and Malcolm Rodriguez, and their resumes entering their senior year are so similar. Cale's is so similar to what Malcolm's was going into his senior year there in 2016. And of course, Malcolm has gone on to play, had a great career at OSU, and now is in the NFL. And not saying that Cale is going to accomplish all those things, but he could. Not going to count him out. Last year, he was a strong player of the year candidate until Wagner lost in the state championship game. Cale Charbonneau is an outstanding player on both sides of the ball, just like Malcolm was, quarterback, linebacker. They're also really good wrestlers too, just all around athletes. And so all of the top 10, they're fascinating to me, but he is probably the most fascinating to see. Where is he going to be playing football a year from now?
All right, Barry, great stuff. We'll record again early next week. We'll talk about all the previous week's actions and look ahead to the week upcoming. And we should also mention too, Barry, that we are going to continue our relationship with Fox 23. We'll be sharing some content as we've done for a number of years. It's really great working with Nathan Thompson and Fox 23. So look for that partnership to continue. What else, Barry? What else should we mention?
Yes, it's our 10th-year anniversary. 10th year anniversary with Fox 23, our relationship with them. Time goes by quickly. And so very much look forward to that.
All right, Barry, appreciate the knowledge as always. We'll talk next week.
Sounds good.